All right, here we are. We are going to do our best, as Chris told me before we went live. We're doing our best. We are the Ball Hawks podcast here, presented by the Dean Blundell Network. Some of you might be tuning in right now. Some of you might be finishing up I want to say snooze fest, just because the Broncos are a part of it. Not very high scoring. It seems to be kind of a theme with the Broncos this year. Once you're done with that game, jump on with us. If you're here following us or watching this on Twitter, just remember you cannot comment. You can watch. That's cool. If you want to comment, join us on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, and you can get in those comments, ask us some questions, jump in on the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. I'm your host for tonight, Steve Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at ssfisher87, and for a record-breaking, I don't even know what number we're at, Chris. I still find it kind of weird that we're on season 2. Like, there's a whole season of us, and people are like, hey, you guys should come back for season 2. But I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Phillips. What's happening today, dude?
And more importantly, we're joined by Cookies Be Good. Our friend over on YouTube is back for another episode of the Ball Hawks podcast. Happy to be here. Like Steve said, we're going to do our best tonight. I'm going to do my best to stay awake. I was watching this Monday Night Football game and was fighting off the old nap demons on the couch. Surprised. If we didn't have the podcast, I'm 100% sure my wife would have been telling me to go to bed.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about this just before jumping on air. You ever do the thing where you're sleeping on the couch? It's usually sideways and you're facing towards the ledge of the couch, and you just happen to lean a little too much, and your brain and your body says you're about to die right now, and you do this big jump and catch yourself from imminent death. That one to me is the absolute worst.
I did that while almost falling asleep on the couch, but I was sitting up, so I was just, I don't know, catching myself from slumping all the way over. I don't know, man. It was
it's so scary. Like you after you do the little like jump and like catch yourself and your heart's racing, you're like, oh my goodness, like that's what I was scared of. Like some guy on the internet posted himself punching and kicking a bear off of a cliff as he was climbing, and we're concerned with almost falling towards the side of the couch or slumping down too much. That guy is nuts, by the way.
Yeah, Mama Bear was protecting her cub, but man, could you imagine you're climbing a mountain, all of a sudden a bear's just jumping at you?
Look, as the one person from this podcast that actually goes on and hunts all the time, I couldn't imagine having my rifle sighted in crosshairs on the bear and it running towards me. I would poop my pants still, let alone trying to climb up a mountain, which I've done some rock climbing before. It's tough as it is. And then trying to punch and kick a bear from ripping you off said mountain. Good for that guy. What a flex. Like, not only on the bear, but like on the rest of us peasants who are napping on the couch while he's fighting bears with his bare hands.
Hey man, I was fighting bears too.
Yeah, like those metaphorical bears as
teddy bears.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Fighting off those teddy bears.
They can get you sometimes.
Yeah, they get you real good.
I have a question for Cookies Be Good here, because Cookies Be Good has joined us for every single episode of season 2. What's the most underrated cookie? You can take some time to think of it. Jump in there at any time. We've had a cookie chat on every single episode in season 2, and I would love to keep this going for the entirety of the season. So while Cookies is thinking of their most underrated cookie, one of the funniest things I saw in the NFL all weekend, I didn't actually watch a ton of football. We had our baseball playoffs with our buds from
playoffs. How'd you guys do?
We did really well. Our boys from That Helps No One Fantasy Cast, Ted and Ryan, we won our first match. We lost the second one. And so normally you go into like a consolation bracket, right? You can kind of work your way. It was a double elimination style tournament. Usually you can work your way back up and try it. No, we got one more guaranteed game after that. It was like you lose and then you just get a final game. And we won that game. And we're like, well, that's kind of anticlimactic ending to the season. A fun fact for you, we might be the only team to ever lose one game in 2 consecutive playoffs and not win anything for it. That's how our spring season ended as well. And so we're kind of lose one game and not win anything. But
I was talking to the person who was making the schedule, and it sounds like there was a lot of teams and not a lot of fields to play on.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's fun. That, we've talked about it before. Rec sports when you're an adult, try not to get hurt, have some good times in the meantime. I did one of those 2 things. My back is killing me today like an old man.
That's old age.
That's old age.
Try not to get hurt. Don't get into a fight. Those are like the 2 main things of rec sports.
Yeah. I will definitely not be fighting in rec sports. That is on the last of my agenda. It would take Chris, your PR person is telling you don't say any more words right now.
I just, I'm usually pretty good in soccer, like, because it is co-ed, so it does help me dial it down. But there are a few occasions where I've just, thrown caution. We've talked about it. I see someone go at one of my teammates, and I lose my cool instantly.
Yeah. There's like those triggers that will get to you almost every single time.
Yeah, unwritten rules, and one of them is going after a teammate, and all of a sudden you've got the smallest guy out there in your face.
Do what you got to do.
Both in soccer and lacrosse. But in lacrosse, fighting is actually legal. So
right. A little weird. You touch somebody in soccer and they fall over, let alone chuck bombs.
So we were playing. So actually, speaking of that, so last Tuesday we were playing, and like I said, it's co-ed. And one of the guys on the team that we were playing against was, I don't know, like just outside the box and like went to go take a shot. And as he went to kick the ball, one of my female teammates like went to kick the ball as well. And I don't know if like they both hit the ball at the same time or if her foot collided with his foot or what happened. But he went down like he got shot, like on his back, rolling around, like hands covering his face, like wailing in pain. And I went to my team and, did you just kill a guy? She's like walking around like totally fine, like not sore. And she's like, I know, right? I'm like, what is that? Like, I get it, we're playing soccer, but come on, man.
All you can think of is that Simpsons meme where he's like, he's already dead.
Yeah. Peter Griffin, Family Guy, is just like
the old shin kick.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Shin kicks are nasty.
Yeah, it was. He was milking it the rest of the game. Even at the end of the game, like in the handshake line, he's still limping. Oh, my ankle, it's sore, and he's limping around. I'm like, man, come on, like.
Yeah. Speaking of sticking up for your teammates, the funny thing that I was going to mention, or the thing that I thought was the funniest, was Tom Brady screaming at his offensive lineman right before the half. But it wasn't the fact that Tom Brady was yelling at his offensive lineman. The caption in it from I can't remember who put it there. It was something like, I didn't leave my wife to be losing to Kenny effing Pickett at halftime. And I was dying. Like, poor Brady comes back, loses his wife, or looks like they're on their way to that, to make another run at a Super Bowl and cement his legacy further. And is just getting beat up on by the crappy Steelers and Kenny Pickett. The Chargers won.
Yeah.
You can tell who has a TV in their podcast studio.
Yeah.
Who's just staring at a blank wall.
Who podcasts in their basement and not in an office. Actually, it was a pretty funny way that it ended. The Chargers punted the ball, and the Broncos called for the fair catch. And there was another Broncos player right in front of the return man. And right as the ball came, the Chargers player pushed the one Broncos player like just enough to distract the return guy. So he like fell backwards. The ball hit his leg, and the Chargers recovered the fumble.
Oh man.
Yeah. Anyways, Chargers win.
That's great.
So it's great. Helps the Seahawks.
Does it?
I mean, yeah, well, because the Seahawks have the Broncos' first round pick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later this episode. I can promise you that. How about you and I both have been a big fan of Sauce Gardner coming out of college and now what he's doing in the NFL. He might be a top 5 NFL cornerback already. Did you see him running around Lambeau Field with a cheese head on after beating Aaron Rodgers and the Packers?
I saw Sauce Gardner making a little cheese sauce in Green Bay, running around with the cheese head on there.
Yeah.
I think he had a pick 6 in that game, but I wasn't. I was flipping channels. I think it ended up getting called back on. I think it got called back on a penalty though.
Yeah. I saw something about that. I was obviously, at baseball playoffs, but I heard something about that as well. Did you see as he was going into the tunnel, there was a Packers player, I think I read that it was like Alan Lazard or something like that, who actually smacked the cheese head off of his head as he was walking by? I don't know. For me, I know this has been talked about so many times, and in baseball, actually, it's kind of a big topic once again, is kind of like the showmanship of it. Like, what is too much showboating and what's good for the game? So for me, I think this is awesome. Like, you go into enemy territory, you beat a team that nobody had the Jets winning that game, or maybe very, very few, like less than 10.
Correction. The Ball Hawks podcast had the Jets winning that game last week.
Oh, did you?
We both did.
I can't remember last week.
Oh.
I'm also trying to just stay awake here, Chris.
Check the tape, folks.
Check the tape. I probably did, but very few people had.
I believe during the Sky is Falling, we did, because wasn't your Sky is Falling that the Packers missed the playoffs?
Oh, that's where it was. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that now. Look at us. We're smart-ish.
So like, SMRT.
Like, we say smart things and then we forget we say them and we're like, what? I said that? Oh, okay, cool. I love it. I love the showmanship of it. Keep doing that kind of stuff. You're in enemy territory. He kind of has that demeanor of him that he wants to be, the rebel everywhere he goes. He wants to piss other fans off, and his play can back it up. So why not do it?
I say good for him. It's harmless. It's fun. It gets people talking, but also good for Alan Lazard for knocking it off his head. Because you should want to, right? Like, you should want to stick up for your home turf and your home team. So I think both sides, I have no problem with what either side did.
And the best part about sports is you can kind of be the showman and someone can be like, no, like, don't do that in our stadium. And it just ends there. Like, there's no, like, it doesn't boil over into something further. Like, I'm sure Alan Lazard could have stopped and like wrestled him for the cheese head or like made a big stink about it. But it was just like smack it off his head to like let him know, like, you're not doing that in our building kind of idea.
It's like the old TO celebration in Dallas when he went and stood in the center of the star at the 50-yard line after scoring a touchdown.
Yep.
And then the Cowboys, like later in the game, I can't remember if they scored a touchdown or if like one of their defenders had an interception or whatever it was, but he runs up to the 50-yard line and he plants the ball like no, like, this is our house.
Yeah.
And then T.O. scores another touchdown and goes to go back to the star. And then that's when the fight started.
Yeah. Everything ensued. So the big news this morning, I guess if we rewind to yesterday, Robbie Anderson, formerly of the Carolina Panthers, was sent to the locker room. Was that right? Did I read that right? He was sent to the locker room for basically getting up in his wide receiver coach's face and screaming at him. And I don't know why guys have to do this. Like, you've already requested a trade. The whole world knows you've requested a trade. Like, at least show your next team that you are a team guy and that, you know, you're going to be useful. I guess it didn't actually matter because the Cardinals picked him up. Obviously, the news was Hollywood Brown has a pretty bad foot injury. I think they're talking about maybe he's got a second opinion and he's going to be out 6 weeks. And so the Cardinals traded, I think it was like 2 late round picks to acquire Robbie Anderson from the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if it's that big of a story. Like, I'm guessing for Ravens fans, because they want every wide receiver that comes out, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, Eric DeCosta didn't go and get him when he was available for a 7th and a 6th round pick or whatever the hell it was.
I mean, he steps into a pretty good situation where he steps into Arizona and he immediately becomes the number 2 wide receiver in that system.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a pretty good spot to land in because DeAndre Hopkins is going to take a lot of the focus when he comes back for the Thursday night game against New Orleans, right? As he should. I mean, the guy's an absolute no-brainer, wide receiver 1. So it gives him a lot of opportunity. I mean, he has proven in the past that he's not a bad receiver. He was pretty good with the Jets. He had some spurts with the Panthers. I don't know what happened with the coach this weekend or even just this season. Like, obviously there's some philosophical differences there. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn his season around.
Yeah, it's a great spot for him, obviously. If I guess if the Cardinals can actually utilize him well, it seems like not a lot is going on in Arizona right now, which I'm sure you're going to talk about. I won't steal any of that thunder, but of all the places, I think that's a really good spot for him to go to.
Cookies Be Good is chiming in here on YouTube, asking what's our favorite team. So thanks for tuning in every week of season 2 here, Cookies Be Good. But I am clearly, I mean, you can't really see it, the lights shining on it, but Seahawks fan here, man.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Michael Crabtree fan. All I can see is really the Crabtree look of it. Oh, there it is. I'm pretty sure mine is a dead giveaway as a Ravens fan here. Chris, Sunday Night Football, the Eagles edge out Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys to stay undefeated. Like I already said, I can't remember, yesterday. What was your prediction? Was it 13-0 before the Eagles were? It was somewhere around like 13.
I think I had them losing the road matchup to the Cowboys is the one I think I had them losing.
Okay. So after, I don't know if you watched any of it, but how confident are you in your prediction after yesterday's game?
I didn't watch any of it, but super confident.
Because they're finding ways to win.
Because ignorance is bliss, and I don't know how I don't think I've seen a single second of any Eagles game this year, actually. But obviously they are. I mean, from my understanding, Darius Slay is playing phenomenal. Their entire defense is playing really well. Jalen Hurts is putting it all together. I mean, he's got 2 fantastic wide receivers in Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, which how dumb did the Tennessee Titans look right now? Just dumping AJ Brown. Terrible move on their behalf. But no, I'm still fairly confident. So
maybe this will be the Tony Romo call of the season. What a freak that guy is. Like, what an absolute freak that he calls the scores of the games before they, even get played.
Yeah. Cookies
So
Be Good saying Superstore cookies so underrates.
okay. Like, hopefully there's like a flavor, because I haven't been
like
to Superstore in a long time, but I'm guessing there's like
all of them,
value
or just
packs or
like the
something.
chocolate chip kind. Or I'm actually going to try for the month of November. I'm going to try my grocery shopping at a different grocery store for the month to see if it saves me money.
Really?
I shop at the most expensive grocery store in town, so
Save on foods.
you got it.
Man, I'm good at this game. Okay, one more around the NFL, and then we will get to our own teams here. Cam Akers trade talks. They are, I don't know. It seems like like last Friday, I think it was, Cam Akers is likely to be traded. He's probably played his last game for the Rams. And then you think it's like, okay, where is he going to go? And there's all these, he's going to go here. This team has interest. Doesn't get traded over the weekend. And there's still this kind of feeling that he's played his last game for the Rams. So, like, apparently this was like a philosophical difference, or a difference of opinions with the offense in some way. I don't even know what's going on. Like, it seems so wild.
Sean McVay was like super cryptic in his messaging to the media, right? Like he was like, we're trying to keep it in house. We're trying to keep it private right now, but you guys will all know about it soon enough, type thing. And then I think it was Josina Anderson that like came out and said it was like philosophical differences. Again, whatever that means, like that's still a pretty cryptic message in itself. But like you and I were talking about, like who has a need for a running back right now? Like I'm trying to run through the teams in my like Chicago, maybe Tampa.
I mean, Khalil Herbert looks good there.
Yeah, but like
good. David Montgomery is back. Like, they make a good 1-2 punch. I know there was talks about like, when Matt Rule was fired, Christian McCaffrey is like on the trade block kind of idea, and it was like, oh, the Buffalo Bills are going to go after him. Yeah, I was trying to think of this. I don't know of a team that is so desperately in need of a running back. But here's a kid who's young, who's still under rookie contract for what, 3 more years?
I'm not sure, but he's only 23.
Right. Like, is there not a team that could take a flyer on a kid like this to kind of solidify their team? Maybe the Dolphins? I don't know.
Maybe the Saints. I mean, Kamara. Yeah. How old's Alvin Kamara now? Like 27?
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe just
there's just, to me, there's no obvious answer as to like what team would go out and like immediately grab for him. In my opinion, it's got to be a team that's making a push, for the playoffs. Maybe they want a strong backup behind like a lead guy, like maybe Tennessee wants.
I was just gonna say maybe Tennessee.
Maybe the Colts with Jonathan Taylor Thomas being, nicked up. Very strange. Christopher, I am actually going to give you the first crack at our teams. You still have the Jonathan Taylor Thomas heart pictures.
I do.
I would like to start these rundowns of our team in a more positive way, and I'm still collecting myself to have a positive take on what the Ravens did this week. So, Christopher, I am going to you first.
I like how we're going in a pattern here of basically whoever's team won gets to go first. So,
we should do that going forward. I didn't even know I was doing that, but okay.
Yeah, that's the way it's gone the last 3 weeks now. So, I guess spoiler alert: Seahawks won. Seahawks 19, Cardinals 9. I mean, you can almost say like a disappointing matchup, like in the sense that everyone was expecting this to be just fireworks, just offensive fireworks back and forth. I mean, we saw the Seahawks and Lions game. We saw the Seahawks and Saints game. Everyone was expecting much of the same with, the Cardinals and their, fast pace, high tempo offense, Kyler Murray. And then, with the way Geno's been playing as well. But there's something about these Seahawks and Cardinals matches that just never make any damn sense. And I thought maybe it was Russell being out of town. I thought maybe that would change this year, but clearly it hasn't. These are still super, super bizarre matchups. And it ended up with one total offensive touchdown in the entire game for both teams. And that was my man, Mr. Kenneth Walker III, with his second career touchdown. The man had 110 total yards in the game, 97 rushing yards, looked every bit the part of an RB1, 3-down workhorse running back. I know DJ Dallas spelled him a couple times, came in, an obvious, like super, like third and long type situations. But yeah, Kenneth Walker looked phenomenal. He was breaking tackles. He was breaking ankles. There was one play late in the game. Like I thought for sure he was going to get tackled for a 3 or 4 yard loss. Somehow he turned it into a 1 yard gain. So, clearly he's showing why the Seahawks drafted him and why they drafted him in the second round. I know how many people were confused and even angry that the Seahawks wasted, air quote, that type of draft capital on a running back when they had Rashad Penny, who, of course, I mean, don't get me wrong, the 5 games that he ended the season with last year were phenomenal. And I was also questioning the Kenneth Walker pick. But we all know Penny has injury history. He has trouble staying on the field. And not just that. I mean, as a 1A, 1B type situation, I think of his best case scenario. And Rashad was also only on a 1 year deal. So I don't think he was in Seattle's long-term plans regardless. You want to say something there?
Yeah. How oddly similar our teams have been since we started doing this podcast. Like there are so many unbelievable parallels to what our teams are doing, even though they couldn't be in two, different trajectories in terms of Ravens are kind of Super Bowl bound right now. Like they're assembling a team together to get to the Super Bowl. Seahawks, more of a rebuild, but same thing. The Ravens also spent a waste of a pick on a running back in the second round when they already had established runners. It just goes to show you that you pick up weapons wherever you can pick up weapons. They're like, you just can't get enough of these guys because it's such a week to week league. Year to year, the teams look different. And thankfully I listen to you when you're talking, because in my other league, I drafted Kenneth Walker kind of late. I'm in a rebuild kind of mode there. And man, do I look good now. I have my keepers set for next year. They're looking good. And J.K. Dobbins and Kenneth Walker are 2 of those guys that I'm keeping.
Man, how Kenneth Walker fell to me in our fantasy league at 12th overall, I don't know, but I'll take it.
In my defense, I picked Breece Hall first overall.
Yeah, you had first overall.
I didn't have a pick until like the 3rd round after that. So
right, but I took Kenneth Walker.
Everyone else in our league is stupid.
Yeah, I took Kenneth. Well, especially in a league where there is a premium on rookies, and I somehow ended up with one of the best rookie running backs with the last pick in the first round.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, guys I was watching the first round, and Allen Robinson went in the first round, and I was like,
Kyle nicknamed him in our sleeper app. You can go in and you can give players nicknames. I think he nicknamed him Crap Hands.
Oh, I did see the one he has for Russell Wilson. It's Russell Wilson's nickname is Dumb Baby. But I saw him go. I saw Josh Jacobs go before Ken. I was
Mike Evans was another one I think that.
Yeah, those ones stood out for me because I had both Jacobs and Allen Robinson on my team last year, and I chose not to keep them. I didn't think they were going to be first round picks this year. I thought maybe I'll be able to scoop them back up late type thing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for me, which you and I have discussed this in the past, like in a league where you get to keep at least one rookie, there's a premium on those players, and I'm focusing on rookies in the first round every year. Speaking of rookies, speaking of the 2022 NFL draft and the Seahawks taking Kenneth Walker in the second round, let's just talk about the Seahawks 2022 draft class. Like,
man, it's looking good.
Like, hats off to John Schneider and Pete Carroll, man. They absolutely nailed it. And I probably said it last week. I probably said it the week before that. And I'm going to keep saying it because this is their best draft class that they've had in probably 10 years. I mean, Charles Cross is already playing phenomenal. Abe Lucas looks awesome. So you found your bookend tackles in the same draft. Kenneth Walker is like, I texted our group chat with the PP1 guys being like, Kenneth Walker is him. And he looks every bit of the part. Coby Bryant with his fourth forced fumble on the season already. This past week, he forced a fumble on Kyler Murray. And Tariq Woolen, he is playing at an all-pro level as a rookie. If he's not in the driver's seat for defensive rookie of the year, I don't know who is, because he's got 4 interceptions already. He's the first rookie cornerback to have 4 interceptions in his first 6 games since 2001. He's just he's again the immeasurables, the 6'4", 4'2", 40. He hasn't allowed a touchdown all season. They got him in the 5th round. The 5th round.
Like when you say that they had an all-time draft, when we're thinking of premium positions, like outside of quarterback, we know that is the premium position. You need to get your quarterback, which is kind of funny. A lot of people had, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Who's the quarterback they had linked to the Seahawks, even in the first round, went to the Titans.
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis, thank you. That's the premium position, but somehow they doubled up on what I would consider are the other 2 premium positions outside of quarterback, which is offensive tackle, doubled up within the first 3 rounds, and then doubled up by round 5. Since we're speaking of the draft class, how does Boy Mafe look? Because I had him targeted as like a first round pick. They stole him in the early second. How has he looked?
His snap percentage is still quite low, so he hasn't really stood out. Daryl Taylor finally showed up this week, which was nice to see. But yeah, Boy Mafe hasn't done much, and I was going to say, like, one of the other premium positions in the NFL is edge rusher, and we're still waiting for Mafe to become what I guess Seattle expect him to be, because I think he was Seattle's other 2nd round pick, if I'm not mistaken. I think they went him and Kenneth Walker back to back, and then Abe in the 3rd.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty good.
Doubling
up on 2 premium positions is, and not because they had 4 or 5 picks in the first 50 players. Like they had some higher picks in like Charles Cross, but like hitting on those 4th, 5th round picks, that's when you start nailing drafts. And you're right, they've absolutely nailed the draft.
Yeah. Well, and like Coby Bryant, I mean, he's battle tested because he was the guy that played opposite of Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
So everyone's avoiding Sauce. And so Coby Bryant, I mean, he faced a lot of receivers and a lot of quarterbacks, and he basically had to play the entire game because Sauce Gardner was just locking down the other side, right? It's like the old Seahawks system where Sherman would lock down the other side, and whoever the other guy was had to, do his job the entire game. So it's I'm super happy with the rookie, super impressed with with how they're doing. Obviously Geno Smith still looking phenomenal. He's not doing, again, he's not playing outside of himself. He's doing what is asked of him. He's doing what's expected of him. He's being safe. He's being efficient. He's making plays where he needs to. This game against Arizona is probably the most that I've seen him scramble all season. And he looked good doing it. He looked fast. He looked decisive. He knew where he was going. He knew what he was doing. Which, can we just discuss for a second? How are we already 6 weeks into the season?
I know, it feels like it just started.
Like, we're a third of the way into the season already. And even defensively, Seattle, like I said, they didn't give up a touchdown to the Cardinals offense. The only touchdown the Cardinals had was on special teams.
Oh, wow.
It was on a, I guess blocked punt. I don't know. It was a cluster in the end zone. Dixon was trying to punt out of the end zone. I don't know. He dropped it. It got, because I don't know. It was, anyways. They had a couple sacks. Poona Ford looked good. Like I said previously, Darrell Taylor looked good. They reduced Cody Barton's snaps down. He only played 39% of the snaps on defense, which I think was good. He's proven that he shouldn't be a full-time player. There was a few confusing things, like they had Uchenna Nwosu dropping back into coverage. And I know they're playing a 3-4 system, and Nwosu is technically a linebacker, and therefore, if he's in a linebacker position, he should be expected to drop into coverage. But he was signed to rush the passer. Don't drop him into coverage. Put another linebacker on the field to do that stuff. That's not his job. That's not what he's there to do. I was, like I said, two defensive turnovers. I don't even know how many yards. Kyler Murray had 100 rushing yards, which was ridiculous. I don't know how many yards passing he had, but all things are looking okay. Seahawks are sitting at 500, 3-3. They're tied for first in their division still with the Rams and the 49ers. They're in a position that nobody expected them to be. Nobody expected them to be 500, pushing for their division. Can they keep it up for what's that?
The NFC West is theirs.
Well, can they keep it up? Like, I don't know. And is this parity in the league, or is this like what Tom Brady is saying a couple weeks ago, or it's just he's watching a lot of bad football, which, I mean, that may be the case too, but I don't know. It's Pete's obviously done a good job of coaching these guys up, and they maybe they have that nobody believes in us, backs against the wall, and nothing to lose mentality. So it's working for them. I hope they keep it going. We'll rely on Denver's draft pick being high enough for us to find the quarterback of the future, and we'll use our own first round pick later in the first round to find a premier edge rusher or something.
Yeah, that's just wild that Denver's first round pick could be a top 10 pick for them, and the Seahawks could be pushing for like an end of the first round pick. These are things I never thought I would have said, even at the start of this season, let alone last year.
Well, 6 weeks into it.
Yeah. I would also like to say, if you are following our other show that we do Tuesday nights, so you can catch us here, I think 8:15 as well on Tuesday nights, I think is roughly the time.
Around there.
Last week, you would have heard me say that my sneaky, I don't know how sneaky it really was. He hasn't been performing like I thought he would this year, but I did say to Ryan, and he put it in his article, to bet on Zach Ertz this week because the Seahawks love to give up points, especially to tight ends. He did okay. He got 7 catches, 70 yards. He was targeted 10 times, so I feel like I'm vindicated in that alone. So,
and Kyler just missed him on a touchdown.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Damn. That would have been so I lost I just looked. I lost our fantasy matchup by less than 3 points. I blame you, Zach Ertz.
I lost by a lot, I think. I don't know. Yep,
Yeah, your
I
team
did.
isn't that great. Speaking of teams that aren't that great, let's talk about the Ravens for a couple minutes here. Here is a team who just can't seem to figure things out at all. Our friend who we had on last season, Sarah Ellison, formerly of the BaltimoreRavens.com, tweeted out the Ravens have trailed for a total of 120 seconds through 6 weeks of football. 120 seconds of football they have trailed for in 6 games, and the Ravens are 3-3. I don't even know how to begin with these things. There's another graphic out there that's going around where it shows the 3 losses and the amount of points they were up at the time. So against Miami, they were up 35-14 with 12:18 left to go in the fourth quarter. They lost that game 42-38. Head scratch, right? Okay, that's a one-off, right? Nope. They were up 20-3 against the Buffalo Bills with 13 seconds left in the half, and they ended up losing the game 23-20. Starting to see a pattern here. They don't like to score a lot towards the end of games. They were up 20-10 in the fourth quarter against the Giants this past week with 6:04 to go in the fourth quarter, and they lost 24-20. So out of those 3 games, they had a full half to play. They had 12:18 left in the fourth quarter and 6:04 left in the fourth quarter. And out of all 3 of those games, they managed to score 3 points. 3 points in basically 3 quarters worth of football towards the end of it. There's no excuse for this. I don't even know where to begin with these late game collapses. I mean, a field goal one way or the other is winning you games, but they are finding weird ways to shoot themselves in the foot. I don't know how accurate this is, but I did see somewhere that Lamar Jackson's passer rating by quarter this season is the first quarter 97.8%. Pretty good. The second quarter 114.8, even better. Third quarter 100.6, keeping in the triple digits there. The fourth quarter 56.3. So, and I mean, nobody has to tell this guy more than himself. He knows this. There's just no excuses for this for Lamar Jackson. I actually ended up not watching the end of the game. I watched the first half and then went to baseball. Actually, I was watching the first half on the way to baseball. I let my wife drive because she loves me and she lets me watch football. But apparently he had a costly interception and a costly fumble in the fourth quarter, which I did go back and kind of watch on, speed replay on DAZN. He's just got to protect the ball. Like, you don't even have to be scoring points, but giving the ball away in crucial situations. I know it's like old timers cliche, but whoever wins the turnover battle usually wins the game because you are giving the other team possessions, especially in other teams' red zones. Like, you don't always have to get a touchdown to win games, right? And he is going to have to answer to that. And he's going to have to figure that out soon, or the Ravens will not be having Super Bowl aspirations. And that mega rich contract is probably looking less and less and less. That's just the nature of the business. Even though I don't think you look at his body of work over the year and he deserves every penny of it plus some. But we know how the business side of it works, and they will try to use every little thing against you.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it Lamar is trying to do too much? Is he trying to prove to everyone that he's a passing quarterback and not just a scrambling quarterback? Or is it a lack of weapons?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't necessarily think that he's trying to prove to people that he is a passing quarterback, because I think he just is, and I think he knows he is. But I do think he is trying to put the team on his shoulders a little too much. I think of course, I was watching this on replay really quickly because I already knew the outcome of the game, but I'm pretty sure it was his fourth quarter interception. He kind of scrambles out to his right, and the defenders are kind of barreling in on him, and he sees Patrick Ricard, a 300-pound fullback, sitting about 15 to 20 yards downfield, kind of just like posting up, and he throws it right at him, and the DB kind of runs behind Ricard and jumps out and takes the interception, when really he could have just thrown the ball away, right? He's just going to have to learn when it's okay to try those Hail Marys, because you know what? If he makes that pass, the fans are like putting him in a whole new folklore, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is why Lamar Jackson deserves like unlimited amounts of money. He's like putting the team on his back. But that doesn't work all the time. And you have to know the difference. Like maybe throwing to, a 300-pound fullback who doesn't have the greatest receiving skills. Like for a 300-pound fullback, he's got some pretty damn good hands, but he's not going to be a guy that, thinks about in those situations, I've got to go run back to the ball to get the ball. So like maybe if that's your only target in desperation, don't run the risk of throwing that ball. Throw it away. Let your, rookie kicker who can punt it over the mountains, pin the other team back, and let your defense make a play. Like they were playing well for most of the game that I actually saw. So obviously maybe a lack of weapons, but I do think when Rashad Bateman gets back, you will see him get back on track. I know there's a lot of talks like they should go get Robbie Anderson. Oh, they should go trade for DJ Moore. I'm okay for that. Like if it happens, great. You can always have more weapons. I think he's got weapons to play with, especially when you factor in Mark Andrews, who again had an unreal day. It looks like he's repeating his All-Pro year last year and showing why I believe he is the best tight end in the entire league, even over Travis Kelce. Even though Kelsey's been having some 4 touchdown games, I still think Mark Andrews is the best tight end in the league. I know you wanted to talk about this one, so I will bring this up so we can kind of go into it. I had to find it here while you were talking. Marlon Humphrey decides that he is going to tweet something after the game. And it says, insanity.
For the second week in a row.
For the second week in a row. Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Albert Einstein.
Which I got a kick out of because that's one of your favorite quotes.
It is one of my top favorite quotes because it's so friggin' true. Like you can't expect to be doing the same things over and over and just hoping for different results. You have to prove those results. So obviously, I think it was the PA or the PR guys went up to Harbaugh and was like, hey, do you know that Marlon sent this? And Harbs was basically like, no, I'm basically not cool enough to be on social media. I have no idea what you're talking about. But
it's funny because we were talking about that last week as well. When Marlo sent the tweet last week, and we were going back and forth, being like, does Harbaugh see it himself, or I think you were like, maybe a PR guy sees it and brings it to his attention, and clearly that's what happens.
Yeah, because so Sarah, you obviously saw this on Sarah Ellison's Twitter.
Yeah,
it says John Harbaugh was asked about Marlon Humphrey's cryptic text last night. Quote: PR sent it to me. I looked down and went, okay. I'm sure if he wants me to understand it, he will. So again, do I think it's a big deal? Do I think it's a non-deal? I do think it is a deal of some sort because there's clear frustration that what they're doing is not working. And he can see that it's not working and things aren't changing. But in terms of will that be like a big, Robbie Anderson moment where like he's going to start screaming in Harbs' face? No, because I think we saw that with Marcus Peters losing it on the sideline and then coming back and having 2 incredible games since then. Harbs has this way of firing guys up and getting the best out of them because he allows them to be who they are. So if they're pissed off and they're frustrated and they want to tweet it out, I'm sure he probably went to him and said, "Hey, man, there's better ways to get your opinion across. Like, I'll sit here and listen to you. Let's have like a team meeting. Let's have a players only meeting." You don't necessarily need to do that. But I also don't think the sky is falling with that kind of thing. Because my wife brought it up to me while we were driving, I go, "Oh, great. Another injury." And she goes, "Oh, is that happening again this year?" Well, it turns out it is because Morgan Moses, their right tackle, who hadn't missed a game in I don't know how many seasons in a row, goes down with a heel injury that is classified as, quote, not serious. I'm sorry, but when you're a tackle and you have to anchor yourself, any sort of foot injury is a serious one to me. It looks like it's not going to be season ending. J.K. Dobbins also had what Coach Harbs classified as his knee tightened up. And so Kenyon Drake had himself a day. For me, obviously, I told you my fantasy team lost. That was part of the reason why. It is nice to see that they are erring on the side of caution with some of these players who are coming back from, big knee injuries so that they don't lose them for a second season in a row. Some positive news, I guess, going forward with injuries is that Gus Edwards seems to be close to return. I know he gives them that kind of 1-2 punch. And maybe Kenyon Drake is kind of like a spell off back when in the early parts here, well, Dobbins and Edwards are still on a bit of a snap count getting healthy. Let's see. Last one, and we will move on to our final segment here. The defense, I thought, played really well. Chuck Clark filled in for an injured Marcus Williams seamlessly. We all knew he would because he's a leader of the defense. He kind of stepped in and had a big day. The defense got to Daniel Jones, which was nice to see. They didn't have to go super blitz heavy. Patrick Queen, Travis Jones, Justin Matabike, and Cleus Campbell all had sacks. Patrick Queen, since, kind of hearing it from people on Twitter and firing back at them, had another big day. He had a sack. He had a forced fumble. He had 5 tackles, 2 assists. It's nice to see him kind of respond to, the critics by showing his play on the field and letting that do the talking for him. All in all, the defense is looking good. You can say it's because I think they're getting a bad rep because the fourth quarter, they're collapsing. But is it really them collapsing if the offense is turning the ball over and putting them back on the field over and over and over? The Giants have looked good. They're a 5-1 team, and they held them to 24 points. Cincinnati Bengals are one of the biggest powerhouse offenses in the league. They held them to 17 points. The Buffalo Bills are the powerhouse offense team in the league, held them to 23 points. The defense has been the defense of old. I don't care. It's a points game. You score points. I don't care how many yards they give up or anything like that. When you are only giving up, 25 or less points to big powerhouse offense teams, I think that's, a big positive to look forward to going into week 7 against the Cleveland Browns. They get to go back home. Like you were talking about, you've got to win the division first. This would be a big game going forward. So we are almost at our hour marker. We've been trying to keep the shows to an hour. You and I have sleep to get to and lives and stuff. We're going to try our new segment. We'll try it for another week, see how it goes. We'll maybe ask for some feedback. The Sky is Falling segment. So this is where you and I each pick one item around the NFL to overreact to. And then the other guy has to say, is that an overreaction or is it not an overreaction? And I'm saying this because I'm trying to remind myself, since I forgot about it last week with my Packers one that you so nicely pointed out for me, Chris. So, Christopher, we have not rehearsed these, we should say. So I don't know what yours is and you don't know what mine is. And I'm really hoping it never comes out that you pick mine. That would be really weird. And I'd have to do some serious scramble mode to come up with a different one. But what is your sky is falling moment of week?
Well, good luck for you. I don't really think about it or plan it. I just wing it and just say whatever comes to mind. Lamar Jackson.
Ooh, you're going here.
Gets his big contract in the offseason, but not with Baltimore.
Oh, you S of a B. 0 chance. I will give that a 0% chance.
So you're saying it's an overreaction?
It's a huge. That is the overreaction of overreactions. Give me your thought process behind this one.
I think he's going to play himself in a position where Baltimore sees an opportunity to move on and get younger in the position. They know that they have a good roster. They know that they can get to the Super Bowl, but they also know that once they pay Lamar Jackson, the path to the Super Bowl gets a lot harder. And trying to reload some of those weapons to, bolster an offensive line, to get a number one wide receiver, to worry about the safety position or whatever. Marlon Humphrey's not getting any younger. Marcus Peters isn't getting any younger. So I think he plays himself in a position where Baltimore finds an opportunity to trade him for one of the high draft picks in this upcoming draft to get one of the young quarterbacks coming out of the draft.
I mean, after last offseason, you know what? I'll give it a 1% chance. I'm backpedaling on that a little bit. After last season, I
made a good point. Thank you.
Never. I just did not think the Seahawks were moving on from Russell Wilson. You didn't think it was happening. Tom Brady became a Buck. Matthew Stafford became a Ram. Like, things like this are not as uncommon as they used to be even, 5 years ago. So I'll give it a 1% chance. I guess my counter argument to that is Lamar is the offense. Like, they can get younger at the position, but what he can do, we have never seen on a football field before, right? We have seen Michael Vick run, and he was the most electrifying person in the early 2000s. Like, he revolutionized that running quarterback. Lamar's a better version of that because he can actually run better than Michael Vick, because his statistics are proving that he's running better than Michael Vick. But the dude can sling the ball. My goodness, can that guy sling the ball? Like, he is the best dual threat quarterback we have ever seen touch the football field. So he is the offense. If you put any of these other rookies with the offense that they have, best of luck, I guess. He's also only 25 years old. So, like, getting younger at the position, you've still got 5+ years of this guy, playing at, that top elite level before he gets into his 30s. You're not wrong, though. You are not wrong about once they pay Lamar, the road to the Super Bowl is a lot harder because more of that cap gets taken up. Where are you cutting that from? So I'll give you a 1% chance, but I think it's a huge overreaction. I think they franchise tag him this year, year after. Like, let him play on franchise tags, and you're still probably saving yourself guaranteed money, at least for the next couple years, while you evaluate how serious you are going for it. I think their Super Bowl window is in the next 2 to 3 years. See where you're at there. And who knows, maybe you can get an absolute haul like the Seahawks are showing could be an absolute fleecing. Who Who would have thought we would have said that too? Like, hey, the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson, and man, did they fleece the Broncos for that.
And they won that trade somehow.
How did they win that trade?
Yeah.
So here's my overreaction. My sky is falling moment, which segues perfect into this. Russell Wilson actually sucks, and he's washed up. He's done. He's not good as a quarterback anymore. And I thought you're the perfect person to bring this up to. Big Baby, or whatever Kyle has nicknamed him.
I'm gonna say that's an overreaction still.
So Baby still has.
He's still a good quarterback. The biggest thing is like, and this could lean towards like you saying he's washed up. He's definitely losing or has already lost his ability to run. He was a little more mobile tonight against the Chargers than he has been the previous 6 weeks this season. But he's definitely losing that ability, that escape ability too. But he's still one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the NFL. I guess I'm giving him a bit of a pass as well, being in a new system, new receivers, doesn't know them as well.
How much of a buffer zone does he get? Like, how much of a pass does he get? Until what week? If he keeps this up, what week do we say Russell Wilson actually sucks?
Oh,
because I had a friend of ours who was in our league. We were talking about Russell Wilson, and this is where I got the idea from it. Just minutes before we actually went live, I'll quote him on this. I said, "Does Russell Wilson suck now?" He goes, "He's a bottom 10 quarterback for sure."
Wow.
Which I was like, I thought it was a bit of I was just playing around a little bit. I'm like, oh wow, there's some merit to this. Like, maybe does he actually suck? He's got so many freaking weapons. How is he not throwing for 400 yards a game? So what week does Dumb Baby?
I think you got to give him at least half a season. So what is that? 2 more weeks?
Wow. 2 weeks to figure it out, Russ.
I just know Russell. Like, I know his off-season preparation. I know what he does. So, and like, he would spend the entire offseason with his wide receivers, basically just in the backyard, throwing passes, running routes, getting familiar, building chemistry. And I don't know if he did that this offseason. I don't know if he had that opportunity to do that this offseason. And I don't know if that's affecting him as far as like play and skill goes, or if that's maybe just mentally affecting him and affecting his confidence. I'm not really sure. I was listening to the Richard Sherman and Richard Sherman podcast last week. He had Marshawn Lynch on, and Marshawn was saying like I'm worried about Dog. He said he's like I want to check in with him, like make sure that he's okay, make sure that his mentals are okay, and that he's not seeing all these headlines saying how much he sucks and all this and that, and that he's not reading too much into that stuff. He goes and Sherman's like, then do it, like give him a call, and Marshawn's like, no man, like if I can't call you directly and I got to go through your manager, I'm not going to call you. And I thought that, like, I was like, what? Like
I also heard that
Russell Wilson makes guys go through his manager to contact him, and I'm like,
maybe he's not the teammate everyone thinks he is?
Is this I wondered, like, is this something new? Has he always been that way? Why does is he doing that to protect himself because of all the hate that's coming out because he left Seattle? Is he doing that because all of a sudden he thinks he's so big time and he's Mr.
Clearly not, because when Marshawn was still on the team, if Marshawn doesn't have his number, then he's been this guy for a while.
Well, no, And that Marshawn didn't go into details if that was a thing in Seattle or not. He just said that's how it is now. And that he has to go through his manager.
All I know is, like, the let Russ cook, they are not letting him cook. Like, he looks tentative to throw.
Yeah.
Like, he has,
and that's why I'm saying, like, is it a confidence thing?
3 interceptions. 5 touchdowns with 3 interceptions, and you paid this guy all that kind of money, and you are not letting him chuck it up.
They had no choice but to pay him. Their backs are against the wall after that trade.
Well, of course, but you make that trade and you are ready to pay him. Like, you are not paying that kind of capital to not give him a massive contract extension to keep him there. Like, you're an absolute fool if you make that trade and you're like, well, let's just roll it week by week and see how it goes. Interesting. In no universe in the multiverse did I think Russell Wilson would be putting up like peasant quarterback numbers with Cortland Sutton, with Jerry Jeudy, with Hamler, with Tim Patrick, with
Tim Patrick's out.
Or he's out now, but like
he's been out all season.
Has he actually?
Yeah.
Well, I thought
okay. I'm pretty sure he got hurt in training camp.
He's got a slew of receivers.
Last thing I'll say on it, skill wise, overreaction. I think it's a confidence thing, and that something's going on mentally. Obviously, like, you know, you can say he's hurt, which he is. Apparently, he's got a injured shoulder or something like that. But I'm not going to place it on the injury. I'm going to place it on his brain and his confidence, and blame it on the mentals.
All right. You heard it here first. Blame Russell Wilson on the mentals. Okay, Chris, I do it every week, and I'm not about to change that because I'm a creature of habit. You get the last word, sir.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Ball Hawks podcast. Of course, like I say every week, we really appreciate everybody's support. So please keep tuning in. If you feel so inclined, check out these live shows when we throw them up on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook. Join us on YouTube or Facebook if you want to be part of the conversation. Really appreciate it. Go subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple. Leave us a rating. Leave us a review. I want to give a special shout out because I'm wearing their hoodie tonight. Shout out to our friends Kate and Michaela at the PNW Showdown. Good friends of the show. Thanks again for this hoodie. It's super comfortable. I love wearing it. So thanks, girls. And as always, guys, we will be back next week. Go give us a follow in the meantime over on Twitter at ballhawks_pod. And of course, go Hawks.